What's up, YouTube fans? Today we're going to do a comparison of the FansToys Gehry with the Toyworld shovel. Their versions of Masterpiece Scale scrappers. Now, this is the quote perfect version that came out, the X version. It was a repaint. Now they made a lot of versions of this combiner, the Toyworld Constructor. So this is actually part of a box set. I'm going to use the individual prices from when they released them as individual robots, but it is part of a box set, so I just wanted to mention that. Now, as I always mention, I try to be as objective as possible with these comparisons, but of course there's subjectivity involved when you're comparing things like this. And I actually got some comments ahead of time that I shouldn't do this comparison because this is so old and it was aiming for something different and it's a different price point and blah, blah, blah. And it doesn't matter to me. Honestly, I do these comparisons to try to help people decide what direction they want to go with their collection, which it could be buying one or the other or both in some cases. I get comments a lot from people who are just new to collecting, and they really appreciate these videos because it helps them look back and see, here's what was available before, here's what's available now, and let me make a decision. There's also people who watch it just for entertainment value, just to see what are the differences, how do they stack up. So I'm going to continue making these. I think they're worth it. If you don't think it's fair, you don't need to watch it. You can turn it off right now and walk away. With that being said, let's get started, and we'll start off with accessories. All right, so here are the accessories. Not a whole lot to talk about, but they both come with a blaster. This FansToys is fully painted. The Toyworld has red accents on black plastic. And then we're left with the horn for FansToys. And this is a die cast. It's a really nice piece, actually. Die cast and chrome. So we're going to give accessories over to FansToys. Next, we'll talk about the gimmicks on these two. And in robot mode, there isn't much for gimmicks. They're both pretty much similar. They don't really have any. But in vehicle mode, they both have the movable shovel that you can pose, and they both have weapon storage in vehicle mode. So we'll give it a tie on gimmicks. Next, we'll talk about the cartoon accuracy on these two. In order to do that, we'll put the G1 image here so you can take a look for yourself. And this one's kind of a no-brainer, obvious. FansToys was going for that toy look, whereas Toyworld was going for a kind of toy-style, stylized version. And obviously, I'm going to give FansToys the cartoon accuracy. They nailed the look of this guy. When you come to the side, though, that's when you start to see some of the differences. I mean, Toyworld really has all sorts of sculpted in detail, accents, paint detail here and there. And even when you come to the back, you know, the backpack's very clean. They did a really good job of the shovel. The FansToys shovel, now you can widen this and make it, you know, the full-size shovel if you want to. That's an option that you have. But I still think there's a lot more kibble on the backpack here on FansToys than there is on Toyworld. Also, just the fact that they have all these sculpted in and painted details, even the wheels, you know, it just looks more interesting. So I'm going to give Sculpt over to Toyworld. I think they really went above and beyond to have interesting sculpt. All right, next we'll talk about the paint on these two. And this one is kind of a no-brainer again. FansToys fully painted, really beautiful metallic paint. The Toyworld does have some paint. You got the silver on the face, silver accents, red accents, black accents, yellow accents all throughout. But the green you see here is not painted. Now it is funny that the greens are very close. You can see there's a metallic sheen on the FansToys, but the shade is very close. So that kind of surprised me because I put this next to the X-Transbots version of Hauler, and that green was totally different. So they are going to be relatively close in color when they finalize the combiner, but we'll get paint over to FansToys. Next, we'll talk about the build quality on these. And FansToys is known for really nice build quality. It's no exception here. This is really well made, very solid materials, hardware, everything. The Toyworld now is really good in combine mode. Very solid, very well built, nice ratchets and hardware. But in robot mode, it's suffered over the different versions they've had. The X version, which is the perfect, quote, perfect version, it came in two different packagings. Now, I got the one that came in foam. After they did the foam, they went to a plastic shell, clamshell, and those versions were really poor quality. This one is not too bad. It's got some little things here and there, like the fingers aren't so great. They're kind of loosey. The legs are a little bit loose at the hips especially. You can see, just doesn't hold forward and backward as well. So little things like that keep this from being a really good build quality. Now that's not to say the combiner isn't, but at the robot level, it definitely is lacking. So we'll give build quality to FansToys. Next, we'll take a look at the articulation on these two. So for the FansToys, the head is on a rotating swivel. It goes up to there, down to there, rotates around. The shoulders can rotate around on this joint, up to the side on friction. Little cover piece there. Rotation at the bicep. Single jointed elbow, but it gets you well past 90 degrees. You have a rotation at the wrist. You have individually articulated fingers at 2 pins. Thumb is on a ball joint and a pin. So fully posable hands. For the waist, you have a waist rotation. It's very light. It is there, but it is, maybe 10 degrees in each direction. Not even 5 degrees total. And you have an ab crunch. It's built into the combiner. So there's the ab crunch. It's down to there. Like I mentioned, it is very tight, so you'll need some force there to get it bent. And it is intentionally tight because it's a combiner joint. For the legs, hip skirt, leg will go up to there on a ratchet. Back to here, hindered by this. Up to the side, it gets hindered, but if you rotate this down and then rotate at that joint, the ball joint, or whatever this is, you can get it out to there. Rotation at the thigh. Single jointed knee gets you 90 degrees. You have ankle tilt, and you have a toe tilt down. And a little bit up, but mostly down. Coming to the Toyworld, the head is on a ball joint, so you get up and down. Not much side to side, just due to the sculpt. Really, actually, I can't even get any side to side. And it rotates around. It is light piped. Back then, we get a lot of light piped stuff. Rotation at the shoulder. You have a butterfly joint at the shoulder. So that's an extra joint that they don't have over there. Goes up to there on a hinge. We have a rotation at the bicep. Single jointed elbow gets you 90 degrees. You have a rotation at the wrist. The fingers are not individually articulated. Well, I guess they are, but they're on a ball peg, but they're curled. So I'm not going to give them the point for individually articulated fingers. They're just more like curled fingers. That one is fully articulated. For the waist, you have a waist swivel. No ab crunch on this one. For the hips, legs will go up to there, although it's very loose. There's a hip skirt on the back to there, out to the side. And unfortunately, that is on a pin, so there's no way to tighten that. Rotation at the thigh. 90-degree bend at the knee. You have ankle tilt, forward and backward, and a toe tilt. So they are really close. I think FansToys has the better articulated hands, but the Toyworld has this butterfly joint built in on the shoulder. So really, really close. I'm going to give them a tie on articulation. I just think there's a couple things on the FansToys that's better, but it's pretty limited. And then there's a couple things on the Toyworld that are better, but this is such an old figure. It is also limited. So we'll give them a tie. Next, we'll talk about the transformation and engineering on these two. When it comes to transformation, both are pretty well done. FansToys of late has been making transformations that are relatively intuitive and fun to do. This one's no exception. The Toyworld, I actually took this off of the constructor, took the leg off and transformed it, and it was very easy. So I think this is also very intuitive and straightforward. So I'm going to give them a tie on transformation. When it comes to engineering, I think I'm also going to tie them out. They're both pretty clean. They both do all three modes pretty well. I do think when we get to alt mode, we'll see the difference there. But as far as the engineering behind them, I think they both do a pretty good job working in the engineering to get them to be triple changers. So tie in transformation and engineering. All right, and there they are in their alt modes, and very different takes. I had actually forgotten how the Toyworld looked, and now that I see it, I really like the way it looks. One thing I forgot to mention during the review for this guy is you can adjust this if you want this look with the 5 teeth, you can, or if you prefer having the look with fewer teeth, you can just fold those out. So it is adjustable, but even with that, I do think the Toyworld just looks better. It's got all these little details, little ladder, whatever this is, yellow accents here and there, tail lights back here, nice looking wheels with the rivets on them, rubber tires with a nice tread. Even the shovel itself, it looks better on the Toyworld just because it doesn't have to come together. It's not parts forming, whereas this one's got lots of little breakup due to the parts forming. It's really this section right here on the FansToys that's kind of ugly from here to here. It doesn't look purposeful, but the Toyworld vehicle overall looks very purposeful. It doesn't look like anything is kind of out of place. So even though I know that's what they were going for, they're going for the tune look, I think Toyworld really nailed the alt mode, so we're going to give it to them. All right, next we'll talk about the cost on these two. And every time I do this, someone always asks, even though I mention it, where did you get that price? I got it for XYZ price. And I use the US retail and or Canada retail price because it's consistent. It doesn't change over time. It doesn't get monkeyed with. And that's why I use that price. I know it is higher than the Chinese price or whatever other international price, but I go off of that because that's consistent. I can keep it the same every time. With that being said, this guy comes in at $200. As this guy comes in at $100. Even adjusted for inflation, I do think that this guy would still be more. So we're going to give cost over to Toyworld. All right, the final category here is the members' choice category, where I ask my members which one they prefer, just based on their own personal preference and no other factors. And every time I do this, again, I get the question, who are these members that are deciding? So these are just people who like my content, appreciate what I do, and have signed up to be a member. It's $1 a month. It's very cheap. But it is a random sample because those members aren't a fan of any particular company or any particular style. They do happen to pick FansToys very often, but again, it is a random sample of people. They're not necessarily hand-chosen for this member's choice. Regardless, you can see that FansToys is going to win the member's choice, so we're going to give them the point. So final thoughts in the comparison, you can see the score, and FansToys is going to take this one. But what surprised me in this is how close it was, and I think what's really going on is FansToys kind of prioritized the combine mode and the robot mode and kind of let the alt mode go, whereas Toyworld prioritized the combine mode and the vehicle mode and kind of let the robot mode go. So that's where you see some of the wins for FansToys was in the robot mode. Now, combine mode, this is still a really great figure overall, the Toyworld Constructor. It's still the best Devastator out there. Now, we'll see how this turns out. We're also waiting for a whole bunch of other Devastators to come out. So I can't speak to that just yet. But as far as robot mode, I think FansToys did a pretty good job here. But vehicle mode, these guys are still really good. So anyway, that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.